Welcome to Building My Legacy podcast. This podcast is designed for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to leave a legacy and will provide strategies that focus upon key elements for legacy creation, determining your desired impact and its benefit, increasing your legacy's reach by engaging key stakeholders, planning, prioritizing, and executing. Here's your host, Dr. Lois Sonstegard.
Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today Taylor Adams. Taylor is interesting in terms of all of the things that she has done in her life so far. And looking at you from my perspective, if you've done this much in this short a period of time, think of what you're going to do with the rest of your life. So she's been a very, very busy person. She came out of a business background, worked in operations, and then has gone on to developing a real estate investment company, and then also an investment group and network for women, which she is doing online and servicing people in many different ways. So she comes from a very interesting perspective. She has this real estate background, the background in operations, background in women's networks and investing. And so, Taylor, if you would just share your story, how you got to all of this, and then we'll get into some of what you've done and what it can mean for our audience.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to share and to have this conversation. So my journey, I always wanted to be my own boss. I always wanted to own my own company ever since I was young. I never really was okay with the traditional path, even though I worked in a corporate setting for a number of years after college. So my career path took a little bit of a turn. I was working in higher education for a number of years, launching campuses across North America and Europe, and I loved it. It was so much fun interacting with students, creating programming, really taking businesses, small businesses, I guess you could say, to the next level. And so that was where my passion really grew. But there was something missing in that I wanted to be able to have more control over the work that I was doing and what I was putting out. So my husband and I had started a few different small companies over the beginning of the 2000s. He's a software engineer, so we were like, let's make an app, let's make this, let's do something with technology. But that wasn't really our passion. And so we kind of stumbled into real estate, and we didn't realize that it was necessarily something that we would be interested in. We purchased our first home, and it was a multifamily. And the thinking was, well, we'll buy a 2-family property, we'll live in one unit, and then we'll rent out the other portion of the house and have the tenant pay a portion of our mortgage. And we didn't realize that was real estate investing at the time. And it kind of snowballed from there. So we started with our what's called a house hack, and then moved into accumulating properties. And we really found, wow, this is really fun. This is a really neat thing to do. And it's a way to actually give back to the community, because if you're buying a bunch of properties in areas that are not super great, maybe the other landlords or the city itself is not taking care of that community, you can use the money that you're receiving to actually give back into that community. So that covered a lot of different things that we were very interested in, always very interested in giving back to our community. So I reconnected with a former college friend of mine, and we were both in investing, and we realized there was really nowhere for us to go with our focus in community, with our focus in entrepreneurship. And we decided that, why don't we just create that community? So out of that was born this community called the Women's Investment Network. And this all happened right before the pandemic. And once the pandemic hit, we were like, oh my goodness, people really need a platform to go to. They really need to be able to connect with one another. So we developed this community that was supposed to be in person. We were thinking small at the time. We were like local, in the Boston area. We'll make sure that these women are getting the support that they need. But once the connection opened up and we could service people online and help build this community to a larger scale, we really dove in. So it turned into a podcast where we're interviewing women who are interested in starting a company. They're interested in investing. They have a company. They're very successful. So we're interviewing them on our podcast and really helping to inspire that community. And then in addition, we are building programming coming from my higher education background, and my co-founder, she is also an educator. So that's just all up our alley. We are really excited to be able to offer that and to really celebrate and inspire other people. So as of now, that's where we are. We're really building and leaning into that support and helping others to find the passion and the fun that we've been able to find in our own work.
You know what's fascinating, Taylor, is you have right from the outset created legacy, and you're moving that with you as you go with what you're doing with giving back to the community. And I think that's going to be the challenge companies are going to be faced with moving
Absolutely.
forward. More and more people are saying, but you make this money, and what are you really doing to help solve some of our community's problems? So you are way ahead of the curve in that. So good for you.
Thank you. Initially, before we started Win, my husband and I, with our company, that's more of our personal company, we really from the beginning wanted to put together a plan on how we could make sure that we were touching on all of the things that were really important to us. And we have built into our business plan, how are we going to be giving back to the community? Are we going to be offering opportunities for volunteer days for our employees that we have in the future? We wanted to build that in now to make sure that the foundation is built on those values so that we don't lose sight of it once things really start rolling, and we've grown beyond the point where we're focusing into the day-to-day of the work.
Good for you. So tell me, as you work with women, are there unique challenges that women deal with in making their investment decision to get into investments? Let's start there, and then with how they operate and run their businesses.
Yes, that's a great question. And it's definitely something, there are unique challenges that we see, absolutely. So the biggest challenge right from the start is there aren't a lot of women in the field. Just from the outset, it's very male dominated, and that can be intimidating. I think a lot of women think that, oh, I have to have a partner in order to be able to do this, and a lot of that stems from having two people being able to invest together, because quite frankly, you need funds in order to invest. But we're really helping them to understand that there are so many different avenues. You don't need to be, making X amount of money in order to invest. There are other ways and other methods that you can do it, and you can do it on your own. So that's one piece. It's male dominated, so that can be a little intimidating. We also see a lot of imposter syndrome coming through with the women who are interested in investing, or um, investing in general, investing in themselves. It's a challenge because imposter syndrome is something that I think starts from a very young age, and it's a kind of a societal issue. And so that's something that we work on with them as well. Um, Overall, I think that as we help them through the process, they start to see that there's so much more that they can do, and partnership, if they want it, within the community that we've created. Um, they can lean on others there. So it's really about helping them understand that there is accountability and there is support within a community and a network, and it doesn't have to be something that is you don't have to go it alone, and you don't have to think that you don't have the ability to do it, because you absolutely do have the ability and the tools to do it. And the resources exist. And so that's what we've been trying to bring to the women in our community, to help them see all of the opportunities in front of them and help them overcome those obstacles that they feel are standing in their way.
Speak a little bit more about the imposter syndrome, because that exists in the corporate world as well, exists in many different places. So share a
Absolutely.
little bit about what you've learned about that and what it really means.
Yeah, absolutely. You are spot on. Working in the corporate world, I personally experienced imposter syndrome. I would sit in a meeting of all men and I was the only woman, and I would sit there and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to ask my question now. I'm going to ask it. I have an idea. I'm going to say it. And then I wait till the end of the meeting and then someone says my idea. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have said it. I could have done it. But what's holding me back from doing that? So what I've learned from imposter syndrome is that it's something that we're creating within ourselves. So imposter syndrome really is believing that you aren't qualified, you aren't enough, um, you aren't as experienced as other people, and so therefore you can't speak on or do something that someone else is doing. And at the end of the day, that's simply not true. Some people are just better at faking it than others.
Uh,
um,
that is true
so
too.
so it's very it's very common that what you'll actually do is you'll undersell yourself. The person who is speaking up in a meeting or doing a particular thing, they may also have the same fear that you have, but they're more comfortable with being uncomfortable. So to overcome that imposter syndrome, you have to just realize where I am is exactly where I need to be. So whatever expertise or skills that I'm bringing to the table, those are the ones that got me to the table in the first place. And so if I am there, I am ready to speak, and it's going to be uncomfortable. And sometimes we're going to be wrong, but that's okay. You need to just be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and eventually that gets easier. You will start getting into situations that are more challenging, and you'll look back and you'll say, oh my gosh, 5 years from now, 5 years ago, I would have never spoken up, or I would have never done this thing because I didn't believe that I was qualified enough to do it. Um, but it really is something that builds, but it's something that we never stop working on.
So, what are the skills that women bring uniquely that make them have the potential? In some ways, I think women have the intuition that can make them more successful. But what is it that you have found that women bring to the investment table?
Yeah. So I actually think that what absolutely, I think that what women bring is actually what we think that we're not bringing. So by holding back and being like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I have this experience, you've actually done all of the background work. Women are overly prepared before they're taking action. So by the time you're ready to take action, you have so much more knowledge than many other people who have been in your position before. So I think that's one big thing, is that we tend to over prepare, and so that we can deliver the way that we want to deliver. So I think that's a big one. I think the other big thing is what we found in our community is there's a big focus on mindset and focusing on shaping your mindset to align with a why. And I think that women are very focused on that why. Why am I doing this? What is the ultimate reason? And money in itself can't just be your ultimate why. Of course, it's a part of it, but is your why that you want to be able to have more time to spend with your family, or more time to travel, or more time to focus on whatever your passions are. And I think because they come from a place of focusing on that mindset and focusing on that piece that's a little bit more personal, I think when they bring that to investing, when they bring that to a business, it gives a different perspective. And diverse perspectives and experiences are so important coming to any new venture, whether that be investing or business. And so I think those are some of the skills and different attributes that I see women coming to the community with.
So as women move into investment, what's the biggest mistake they could make, do you think?
Waiting too long.
Interesting.
So like I said, women we've seen in our community specifically, women wait forever to get started. They're like, I'm gonna be so prepared by the time I get there. But by the time they get there, they've waited, they've waited. I always say the longer you wait, the longer you wait. The longer you wait to do something, the longer you wait to see results. So if you're waiting 10 years to get extra prepared in order to be able to execute, someone else in those 10 years is going to have already accomplished what you wanted to do. And once you're actually in that position, you're going to look back at your past self, and you're going to say, oh my gosh, why didn't I start sooner? And I know with our podcast guests that we have, that's often what they will say to us is, why didn't I start sooner? Why did I wait so long? And it's just because we tend to second guess ourselves. So don't second guess yourself. Just start from where you are now, because you'll look back and want to have started sooner, even sooner than you did.
So for what you do with women in investment, is there a need to have access to capital? And what's their experience with that?
Hmm. It's a great question. So it's a mix. So there are ways to invest with little or no money down. There are ways to do it, and I think that providing that education is one of the big things that we focus on. Is you don't need to wait until you have hundreds of thousands of dollars before you can start actually moving into investing or starting a company or whatnot. There are ways to do it for smaller amounts of money. So, for instance, I can give an example of a house hack, which is what my husband and I started with, is a way to invest with little money down. So 3.5% down on a property, and potentially live for free. And then you can be saving to get your next property. So that's just a way you can do it for little money down. If you're a veteran, you could get a VA loan and zero money down. You could invest other people's money, and that's a way you could do it with no money down. So I think that the access to capital is definitely something that holds people back. There are different approaches when it comes to building that capital and finding access to it, and finding a mentor and finding someone to work with is a big piece of what can get you to that next level. So we really work hard to make sure that we're connecting people with people who are experienced so that they can learn from someone who maybe is just 10% ahead of where they are. And that'll give them the confidence to move forward and maybe invest someone else's money so they can take the burden off of that person, because there's some people who just don't want to actually be in the day-to-day of investing. They would prefer someone else handle that. And if you are the type of person who is really organized and really excited about doing that, you can absolutely help them and help yourself at the same time.
So for you, Taylor, as you have been on this journey, what for you have been some of your biggest learnings?
Yes. So some of my biggest learnings have been the best laid plans don't always work out. The pandemic has been very eye-opening for me. So I was 5 months pregnant when the pandemic hit. My husband and I had a rock solid plan of what we were going to do in 2020 and what that was going to mean for 2021. And we really had to pivot. And that pivot turned into actually great things, but you have to find that silver lining. You're going to create these big plans, whether it be with investing, like our investing journey has totally shifted this year and will probably for the next couple years. And it has shifted my business to a place where I now can service people online. I've created a business that I'm really passionate about and helping other people. So I think the biggest learning is that don't be afraid to pivot. And even when it seems scary, uh, there will be a silver lining, and maybe you'll end up in a better place than where you ever thought you could have been before.
Just speak a little bit to being a mother. You're a new mom as you've gone through this. And I think that's one of the challenges women often have is trying to figure out being a mom, having children, being responsible and accountable for their role as a mom, and then excelling at business. So what are some of the things that you've learned that you've had to adapt to, adjust, and shift in your thinking as you became a mom?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a wild ride so far. So she just turned a month a couple days ago. So brand new to the mom life. So some of the things that I did prior to having her is I really focused on how can I automate my business? How can I create something that's scalable that will give me time back in my day so that I can dedicate my time to her and still not lose traction on my business? So once I went on maternity leave, which I am technically on now, which wasn't a real, I wouldn't say it's a real maternity leave because I'm so passionate about what I'm doing that I want to be in it all the time. I want to be in the business all the time, working with my clients. So I think my focus has been how do I create a system for myself, a process for myself that allows me to have more time back in my life. And my ultimate why has always been to be able to spend more time with my family, my husband, my daughter, our puppy. How do we do that? And that was the big why that really started all of this. And I found that by doing what I'm doing now and feeling like oh my gosh, I don't have it all together. I'm a mess sometimes, has actually been a blessing because it's forced me to be very specific and regimented with my process. So, an hour a day when she's napping, I can focus on automating the business. I can focus on creating a schedule that works for me and having the business move forward without me being in it every day. So I can sit with her and I can have those baby cuddles because they don't last very long. So that's been my big thing is focusing on that. And a huge shout out to my husband. He is the ultimate partner. He is in a meeting right now and I fed the baby, he took the baby. We he's so helpful when it comes to really helping me create that time, because I think I get that guilt of, well, I have the small business. I need to take the baby. Like I'm the one who needs to help the baby because I have more flexibility. And he will say to me, Taylor, no, I like she's my daughter too, and this is my responsibility as well. I will take the baby. She can sit with me during a meeting, I'll warm up a bottle. Don't worry about it. And that's really helpful for me because I would just do it all if given the option. So creating that schedule, creating that automation, and then I have a rock star partner. So I'm just extra lucky.
I think what you're saying about giving yourself permission is one of the hardest things that especially women struggle with. And I think many times we wait for somebody to give us permission to give ourselves permission.
So true.
So having that in your life is great. Taylor, our time is almost up. I just would like to know anything that we have missed that you think we should be talking about that's important to people.
Yeah. So I would say that one thing that I would just like to say to others who are trying to start a business, or trying to get into investing, or they're an entrepreneur, or they're thinking about being an entrepreneur, um, don't be afraid to start. Don't be afraid to just to do the thing that you're passionate about, um, because as we've learned from everything, uh, time is limited and we need to do the things that we're passionate about, um, and find that community that's going to support you uh, to do it.
Having a community, having a coach, having a mentor, all of that it's huge.
It
And
is.
it actually saves you so much money down the road.
Absolutely.
But it's a hard one to learn because early on you count every penny and you think, no, no, not now. But now is when you really need it.
Absolutely. It's so true. That was one of the reasons that we started our program. We were like, we've gathered all this knowledge. We've done the years of research and work. Let's put it all in one place so that people can access it and they don't have to go searching for all these different resources that we've put together already for them. So you're dead on. It's so important to just invest the money in doing that education, because someone is literally laying it out for you. They're going to help you get to that next level.
Taylor, thank you so much for being with us today on Building My Legacy podcast. And I appreciate your perspective on how you pull it together as a new mom, as a woman who's looking at investment, who's really also looking at how do we take our companies and be fully responsible by giving back. So thank you so much
Thank you
for
for having
sharing
me.
all of that with us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
You've been listening to Building My Legacy podcast with Dr. Lois Sonstegard. To book your appointment with Dr. Sonstegard, visit www.buildtomorrow.com.